and show you this truly bizarre capability called adaptive components. And, you know, let me give you the mind-blowing thing about adaptive components first, is that you're creating objects that have no set dimension. Now, ever since you were, 2 years old and were holding a crayon, you drew a line on a piece of paper or the wall or something, and that line had a dimension to it. It was 2 feet, 3 1/4 inches long on the wall, and it was bright red. And you remember that really well because you got spanked for doing it, so. But we're going to look at a way of drawing where when you draw it, it does have a dimension on the screen, but when you use it in your Revit model, that's when you set the real dimension. So it's just a completely weird concept of drawing things that have no dimension. So I'm going to do that by going to File and New and Family, and Generic Model Adaptive. When it opens up, it's a whole lot like the conceptual massing tool. Okay, but this is not a mass, this is a solid. And you can draw walls or floors or different things with this tool. But, so we see the crosshairs, we see the levels. I can make different levels by clicking and dragging, just like so hold the control key down, click and drag, just like the conceptual massing tool. So that's pretty easy, pretty cool. Now, to turn it into this thing called an adaptive component. The notion of an adaptive component is that it adapts its shape and form when you use it. So, you can draw it, but you're specifying, when you draw it, you're specifying the relationships among the parts, but you're not specifying the dimension. For convenience, we're drawing it, it has a dimension, but we're really specifying the relationship of parts. Now, I don't know, let's try to do something. I'm going to make a few levels here. All right, now the power of it is when we place point elements. And see, it's trying to place that point on that vertical. I don't want that. Set back down to this, show that so I can see what's. There we go. See my drawing plane. And I'm going to put some points down here. Now, because there's no dimension, it doesn't matter where I put the points. It really doesn't matter. I've just told it I want 4 points. And so I have these 4 points. And I'm going to select those 4 points. And I'm going to say make adaptive. And when I do that, I get these coordinate systems and I get numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those numbers correspond to the sequence of clicks of my mouse when I place this thing. So, all right, so points are not all that interesting, but if I click on spline through points here, I've got those 4 points selected, it will draw a spline curve through those points. And I can move those points around. If I go to this level, and I'm drawing on that level, I'm gonna spin around to the top view. Well, doesn't really matter, because we're drawing these crazy adaptive points. I'll control click to click those 4 and make them adaptive. These will be 4 through 8. And I'll create a points through them. And if I go back to a 3D view, spin it around, see these weird points. Clicked on the wrong one. So I'm going to dissolve it. Now, this one's labeled 8 and this one's labeled 7. I don't like that. If I change it to 7. There we go. There we have 5, 6, 7, 8. That makes a little more sense. And if I pick those 4, and do another adaptive or another spline curve through them, then I've got a spline. If I pick those 2 spline curves, create form, I get a strange, odd, curvilinear form. Now watch what happens when I load this into a project. Remember, the location of those points is merely for drawing purposes. They have no set location. They adapt. And so if I load it into my project, I can place those 4 points almost anywhere I want. Yeah. There we go. Now in this case, I placed them all on the flat plane. So it's not all that interesting, but I can still move them around and displace them vertically or horizontally. So with these adaptive points, I've now given myself a great deal more flexibility when I use them in my project file. And I can create pretty much any shape I want as a surface in my project file. And I can still do a wall by face. And I can go back and click on that adaptive thing. I see all these numbered points here. I can tab select. I should be able to tab select to get that point. And I can move it around. And I can update to face. So, I've got this outrageous amount of flexibility in what I create. So for this project, you could stick to the conceptual massing. You could introduce some level of generic model, adaptive, and add more kind of flexibility. So now to continue to do the, outrageousness here of advanced Revit, we could look at this this wall back here and ask, well, that's cool, but how do I build it? Very good question. How do you build something like that? You build it by breaking it up into pieces that are more manageable. And Revit will let you do that. If I click on this object, there's a divide surface command here. And I can divide that surface into these smaller pieces. And, I could triangulate it with flat panels. And now it's buildable out of flat panels, pieces of plywood, because each of these is a flat panel. And I'm not going to go through this right now. I just want to give you a teaser. If you're interested in it, you can look up divided surfaces and watch YouTube videos about it. Curtain panel pattern base. And, it is a complicated topic, but it, in the spirit of Revit being a tool to help one build architecture, it gives you a solution where you can draw rather quickly every panel in a crazy curved surface and every fitting that holds those panels in a precise location. And using adaptive components and curtain panel pattern base, you can build that whole system and apply it to an adaptive surface and just, just generate all of that data, all of those visualizations rather quickly. Now I say rather quickly, I'm not going to say instantly. I've created these surfaces that took my computer 15 or 20 minutes to do all the calculations before it would show me the perspective. Well, faster computer, it would take less time. But there's some posts on my blog about using this stuff. On Builds, Zach Krohn's site, there is endless discussion of how to interesting, crazy things you can do with these tools. Now, I kind of say at this stage in the semester, don't do this. Too complicated. You won't get the project finished. But depending on how readily you pick up these ideas, by the end of the semester, you may be doing these. Now, I have talked to lots of different Revit users, some very advanced, using it in firms, and they don't know any of this stuff. So, there's an added value for you in learning about using conceptual masses and using adaptive components and divided surfaces and so on. This is a secret that now you are part of the in crowd who knows all about it. And to learn how to use it, it's just look it up on YouTube.